When you think about Napoleon's legendary marshals, there are a lot of famous names, but there's one that inspired a special kind of respect. And let's be honest, a good deal of fear. That was Louis-Nicolas Davout. But nobody called him that. History knows him by a much tougher title, the Iron Marshal. And trust me, that wasn't just a cool nickname. It was earned, big time.
So that's the big question, right? Why that name? What does a guy have to do to get a title like the Iron Marshal? It wasn't something people just threw around. It defined everything about him, his methods, his victories, and his entire legacy. To really get it, we need to dive into how he built his army, how he fought, and what he was like as a person.
And it really all starts right here. The foundation for everything else, the core of his reputation, was his absolutely unwavering, you might even say fanatical approach to discipline. This was the fire where that iron was first forged. See, for Davout, discipline wasn't just about yelling at soldiers or harsh punishments. No, it was a complete, all-encompassing system. We're talking non-stop training, an obsession with drill and maneuvers, and even super strict rules about hygiene to keep his soldiers healthy and ready to fight. The point wasn't just to make them obedient. It was to build the single most professional, reliable, and deadly fighting force in all of Europe.
And when you put his corps side by side with the typical one, well, the difference is just night and day. On one side, you have Davout's Third Corps, a finely tuned machine, rigorous daily drills, a strict no-looting policy, which was almost unheard of, and because of that, incredibly low desertion rates. And maybe most important, you got promoted based on how good you were, not who you knew. On the other side, well, that was the norm. Training was hit or miss, armies were expected to steal from locals to eat, and you'd have tons of guys just wandering off. Davout was playing a whole different sport.
And this quote, it just nails his philosophy perfectly. Yeah, he demanded the absolute most from his soldiers. His standards were sky high. But that same discipline meant his men got their pay on time, had the best equipment, and were looked after. He demanded iron from them, sure, but he gave them his full ironclad commitment right back.
Okay, so all that practice, all that tough discipline, it had to be for something, right? This is where we see it all pay off. The training ground was one thing, but the battlefield was where that iron was truly tested.
0. Just look at that number for a second. Let it sink in. What does it mean? That's the number of major battles Marshal Davout lost when he was in independent command. 0. Not a single one. His corps wasn't just famous for being disciplined in camp. It became legendary for being literally invincible when it mattered most.
So how on earth did he do it? Well, the Battle of Auerstedt is the masterclass. Get this, while Napoleon was fighting one part of the Prussian army, Davout and his single corps ran into the main Prussian army, and he was outnumbered almost 2-1. And he won. His formula was brutally effective. Grab the high ground first. Use those perfectly drilled infantry to form squares that cavalry just shattered against. He'd let the enemy throw their absolute best at him, absorb the blow, and then just start advancing, methodically, relentlessly. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't fancy. It was pure iron discipline turned into a winning tactic.
But here's the thing. The nickname wasn't just about his army or his tactics. It was about him, the man himself. To really get why they called him the Iron Marshal, you have to look past the battles and into his unbending personal character.
This one word says so much. Incorruptible. I mean, think about it. This was an era where generals regularly got rich off the spoils of war. It was almost expected. But Davout, he was famous for his total and complete integrity. You just couldn't buy him, period.
His whole character was built on these iron pillars. He turned down bribes that would have made him fabulously wealthy. As an administrator, he was incredibly detailed and demanded perfection. Socially, well, he wasn't the life of the party. He was known for being stern, distant, even a bit socially awkward. His loyalty to Napoleon was absolute. And maybe the biggest thing of all, he forced himself to live by the exact same strict rules he put on everyone else. There was one standard, and it applied to everyone, starting with him.
All right, so we've looked at his discipline, his perfect battlefield record, and his personality. Let's put all the pieces together now and give the final verdict on how he earned that incredible title.
So, why the Iron Marshal? It really comes down to 3 things that are all connected. First, his unyielding discipline forged an army of iron. Second, that army of iron had an unbeatable record on the battlefield, an iron will to win. And finally, his own personal character, that integrity, that rigid code of conduct was as strong and unbending as iron itself. The man, his army, and his results, they were all forged from the same material.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. You look at Davout's methods today, that absolute discipline, the demanding nature, the intense focus on merit.
And you have to wonder, is that kind of iron leadership just an old-fashioned thing from the past? Or are its core principles, integrity, high standards, and total commitment actually timeless? Something to think about.